Ethan lived in a quiet town near the forest. He didn't have a big family or many friends, but he wasn't lonely. He had Max, a golden retriever who was more like a best friend than a dog. Max was smart, loyal, and always full of energy every morning. Ethan would drink his coffee while Max barked at birds. And every evening they walked in the woods together. It was peaceful, simple, and perfect. One night, the sky turned dark too early. Heavy clouds rolled in, and the wind picked up speed. Lightning flashed across the sky, and thunder roared. The kind of storm that made animals hide and people lock their windows. Ethan was about to call Max inside when the dog suddenly froze. He stared into the woods, ears up, body tense. "What is it, boy?" Ethan asked, but Max didn't respond. Not even a bark, just a low growl. Then, without warning, Max ran into the forest. Ethan shouted his name, ran after him. But Max was fast, too fast. Branches scratched Ethan's arms. Rain soaked his clothes, and mud pulled at his boots. He ran deeper into the woods, calling, yelling, searching, but Max was gone. No sound, no paw prints, only darkness and rain. After what felt like hours, Ethan stood still, breathing hard. The storm eased a little, and a strange silence filled the air. No birds, no wind, just quiet. And then he saw it. A large circle burned into the ground, the size of a car. The grass was black, like it had been melted, and the air around it smelled like metal and fire. Ethan stepped closer, heart pounding, but Max was nowhere near it. No sign of him, just the strange circle, still warm under the rain. Ethan stayed there a long time, calling again and again, hoping Max would jump out from the trees. Muddy and happy like always, but nothing came, no bark, no sound. Just the whisper of wind through the trees the next morning. Ethan went back to the same spot with a flashlight and Max's favorite toy. He searched again, looking for any clue, any track. But there was still nothing, only the strange burned circle and broken branches leading nowhere. People in town said maybe Max chased a deer and got lost. Others said wild animals might have taken him, but Ethan knew Max. He never ran far. And he always came back. Something was wrong that night. Ethan couldn't sleep. Every sound outside made him sit up. Every creak, every gust of wind, he kept thinking about the circle in the forest. It wasn't normal. It didn't feel right. And Max had gone straight toward it, like something had called him. Ethan remembered something else from that night. Just before Max ran, he thought he saw a light in the trees. Not white, not yellow-blue, soft and glowing, like something floating between the branches. He had thought it was lightning, but now he wasn't sure. He went back to the forest again the next day. He didn't care about the mud or the cold. He had to find Max, or at least understand what had happened. This time, he brought Max's blanket, his bowl, even some food. He left it near the circle, hoping maybe Max would smell it and return as he turned to leave. Something moved behind the trees, a soft giggle. Almost like a child, Ethan froze. His heart beat faster. He turned back, looking hard. But there was nothing, only shadows and trees. Then he saw it. Two small figures, standing near the circle. They were girls. But not like any he had seen before. Their skin was pale and glowing. Like moonlight, their eyes were large, silver and calm, and between them, wagging his tail happily, was Max. Ethan stepped forward, shocked, confused. Max barked once and ran to him, tail wagging, tongue out like nothing had ever happened. Ethan dropped to his knees, hugging his dog. Tears in his eyes when he looked up. The girls were still standing there, watching him. They didn't speak at first, just smiled, like they were happy Max had found his way home. Then one of them said, "He showed us joy." Ethan didn't understand. "Who are you?" He asked, "Where did you come from?" The other girl pointed at the circle on the ground. "Through the gate," she said simply. And just like that, the wind picked up again. And the girls turned and walked back into the trees. Their shapes shimmered for a moment, like heat rising off the road. Then they were gone. Ethan held Max close and looked at the circle once more. Still warm, still strange. Something had begun. Something far bigger than a missing dog. Ethan didn't sleep that night. Max lay beside him, calm and happy, like he hadn't been missing at all, but Ethan couldn't forget the girls in the woods. Their glowing skin, silver eyes, and strange voices. It wasn't a dream. It wasn't his imagination. They were real. And they had come from that circle in the ground, through something they called the gate. The next morning, Ethan packed a small bag. He added water, snacks, a flashlight, and Max's leash. Then he walked back to the forest. Max walked beside him, tail wagging like everything was normal. But Ethan kept looking around, waiting for something unusual to happen again. When he reached the circle, it looked different in the daylight. The grass around it was still black and dead. But now, faint lines glowed beneath the soil, like something deep underground was still active. Ethan stood there for a while, hoping the girls would return. He didn't know what he would say, but he needed answers suddenly. Max barked and ran ahead. Ethan followed quickly. They came to a small clearing, and there they were again. The two girls sat on a large rock, laughing softly as Max ran circles around them. One of them clapped her hands and giggled when Max dropped a stick in front of her. The other looked up at Ethan with a calm smile. "You came back," she said. Ethan stepped closer, slowly. "Who are you?" He asked again, "Where did you come from?" The girl looked at her sister, then back at Ethan. "We came from beyond the sky," she said. "Our ship landed through the gate." Ethan's mouth went dry. He didn't know how to respond. "Are you aliens?" The younger girl tilted her head. "Is that your word for people not from here?" she asked. Ethan said. Still unsure if he should be afraid, they looked like children. But something about them felt very old. "We're not here to harm," the older one said. "We were not supposed to land. We were running, hiding, from who?" Ethan asked. The girl didn't answer right away. She reached out and touched Ethan's hand gently. Suddenly, he saw images in his mind. A huge, dark ship, a planet burning, children crying, and creatures with long limbs and glowing red eyes chasing them. The feeling of fear wrapped around him like ice. Ethan pulled his hand back, breathing hard. The girl's face was sad. "We escaped," she said softly, "but they are looking." "They always look." Ethan sat down on a fallen tree. Max lay beside him. The dog didn't seem afraid of the girls at all. In fact, he seemed to trust them more than he trusted strangers in town. "How did Max find you?" Ethan asked. "He found us first," the younger girl said. "He followed our scent. He is kind. He showed us how to play. How to feel safe." Ethan looked at Max. Then back at the girls. "You've never felt safe before." The older girl shook her head slowly. "Not since we left our world for a while." No one spoke. The forest around them felt still, like even the birds were listening. Then the younger girl asked, "Why do humans have homes?" Ethan blinked. "To stay warm, safe, to rest," he said. "To keep families together." The girls looked at each other. Then at Ethan. "We want that," the older one said. "But we don't know how to ask." Ethan felt something deep in his chest. These weren't just aliens or strange visitors. They were children alone, scared and far from home, and somehow, Max had become their guide, their friend. "You can stay hidden for now," Ethan said. "I'll bring you food, clothes, whatever I can. But you can't walk into town. People won't understand." The girls nodded. "We understand fear," said the older one. It speaks loudly on your planet." Before Ethan left, the younger girl gave him a small glowing stone. It felt warm in his hand. "This shows us where you are," she said. "If danger comes, we can find you." Ethan took it and nodded. He walked home with Max, mind full of questions. What had he just become a part of? What were those things chasing the girls? Would they come here? Would the town be safe? That night, Ethan sat by the window with Max at his feet. He held the glowing stone in his hand, staring at the stars above. Somewhere out there, something was moving. Something terrible enough to make 2 alien children run across the galaxy. And now, they were here, in his forest, playing with his dog. And trusting him, he didn't know what was coming next. But he knew one thing for sure. He had to protect them, no matter what. Ethan woke up before dawn. The house was silent, the sky still dark. But his mind was full of restless thoughts. The glowing stone lay on his nightstand, pulsing softly like a living heart. Max slept at the foot of the bed, ears twitching at every sound. Ethan reached down to scratch his head, thinking about the 2 strange girls hiding in the woods. He had promised to bring them food and clothes. But deep down, he knew that was only a small part of the problem. If they were running from something powerful enough to burn a planet, it was only a matter of time before it came here. The thought made his stomach tighten. He didn't know who to tell. He didn't even know if anyone would believe him. By sunrise, Ethan was back on the path to the forest. He carried a small bag filled with bread, fruit, and some old clothes from his sister's children. Max trotted beside him, tail wagging but his body alert. The forest looked different today. Not dangerous, but heavy, like it was waiting. When he reached the clearing, the girls were already there. They stood near the burned circle, their heads tilted up to the sky as if listening to something far away. Max ran to them, barking happily. The younger girl bent down to hug him. Her hands glowed faintly against his fur. "You came," the older girl said, her silver eyes fixed on Ethan. "I said I would," Ethan replied. Handing her the bag, "Here's some food." And clothes, the girls looked at the items curiously. The younger one ran her fingers over the soft fabric. "Warm," she whispered. "It feels like home." Ethan sat down on a fallen tree, watching them. "What are your names?" he asked, realizing he had never asked. The older girl paused, as if thinking. "Names change," she said. "On our world, I was called Lyra. She was called Gnome, Lyra, and Gnome." Ethan repeated slowly. "All right, Lyra and Gnome, you're safe here for now." Lyra's eyes flickered. "Safe is not real," she said softly. "Not for long," Ethan frowned. "Why do you say that?" Gnome looked up at him, her small face serious. "Because they are coming," she said. "We feel them. They look for us." Ethan felt a chill crawl up his neck. "Who are they?" he asked. Lyra hesitated, then reached out her hand. "I can show you," she said. Ethan remembered what had happened the last time she touched him. But he nodded. He needed to understand. He placed his hand in hers. A rush of images filled his mind. He saw black skies filled with burning ships, cities crumbling under beams of red light, tall creatures with long, thin limbs and glowing red eyes moving like shadows. He felt the panic of thousands running. He heard the sound of metal wings and a low, endless hum that shook the ground. Then he saw Lyra and Gnome, small and frightened, hiding inside a silver pod. He felt their fear as the pod launched into space, their world shrinking behind them. He felt the endless silence of the journey, the loneliness, the memory of a home they would never see again. The vision faded. Ethan gasped, pulling his hand back. His heart pounded against his ribs. Max whined softly, sensing his distress. "They destroyed your planet," Ethan said, his voice low. Lyra nodded. "They take worlds," she said. They mark them first, then they come. They want us back because we are the last. Ethan looked at them. These two small figures who carried the weight of an entire world's loss. He didn't know what to say. He just felt a deep ache in his chest. "I won't let them take you," he said finally. "Not while I'm here." Gnome tilted her head. "You are only one human," she said, not unkindly. "Why would you try?" Ethan gave a small smile. "Because that's what we do," he said. "We try." Even when we're outnumbered, the girls exchanged a glance, something like curiosity in their eyes. Before Ethan could say more, Max barked sharply. His ears stood up, his body stiff. Lyra turned quickly, her silver eyes glowing faintly. "They are near," she whispered. Ethan looked around the clearing. At first, he saw nothing. Then he noticed a faint shimmer between the trees. Like heat rising off asphalt, the shimmer moved. Slow and deliberate. "What is that?" Ethan whispered. "Hunters," Lyra said. "Machines they send first, to find us." Ethan's heart raced. He had no weapon, no plan. He looked at the girls. "We have to move," he said. "Now?" Lyra nodded, grabbing Nomi's hand. Max growled low in his throat, ready to follow. Ethan led them away from the clearing, deeper into the forest. Using paths he knew from years of walking Max. The trees grew thicker, the light dimmer, but he kept moving, listening for the faint hum of the machine behind them. They reached an old wooden bridge over a dry creek. Ethan stopped to catch his breath. Lyra touched a tree trunk, closing her eyes. "It's still coming," she said. "It smells us." Ethan looked around desperately. "There's a shed not far from here," he said. "We can hide there for now," as they moved again. Gnome whispered something Ethan almost didn't catch. "Why do you help us?" She asked softly. Ethan glanced down at her. "Because you're just kids," he said. "Because someone has to." She looked at him for a long time, then nodded once, as if filing the answer away. The hum behind them grew louder. Max barked again, the sound sharp and urgent. Ethan felt his pulse thunder in his ears. He didn't know what was coming through those trees. But he knew one thing. This was only the beginning. Ethan moved faster than he ever had in his life. Max pulling at the leash as if he knew the forest like a map only dogs could read. The trees closed around them, leaves brushing their faces. Every sound seemed louder and closer than before. Ethan could feel his heart in his throat. He led them toward an old shed he had used once to fix a fence. It was small, hidden by ivy, and it smelled of oil and old wood. It would be a good place to hide for a while. They slipped inside and closed the door quietly. The shed was tight, but it was dry and dark. Lyra and Gnome crouched on an old bale of hay, blinking in the dim light. Max sat by the door with his ears pricked. Like a sentry, Ethan checked the windows, covering the cracks with old rags so no light would show. He could hear nothing outside at first. Then a faint sound like wind through pipes. Not wind, he realized, but a slow mechanical hum that made the floor vibrate slightly. It was the sound of something searching. Lyra touched Ethan's arm, her skin cold and steady. "They send the walkers first," she whispered, "to find heat and sound." Ethan nodded. Trying to keep his voice calm, "We will stay very still," he said. "We will be quiet." Minutes passed like hours. The hum grew closer. And then there was a noise like metal feet on wet soil. Something large moving across the forest floor. Light from outside slanted through the cracks, thin and sharp, moving like the eye of a creature. Ethan held his breath, his muscles tight as rope. Max pressed his body against Ethan's leg, giving him strength with the weight of his trust. A shadow crossed the planks near the window, then another. The shed shuddered as something heavy touched the roof, a long arm or probe tapping the wood. Probing, searching, Ethan felt the air change. It smelled of ozone and something sweet and bitter like burnt sugar. The girls huddled closer, their hands finding each other in the dark. Lyra's fingers trembled for a moment, and Ethan squeezed her hand, letting her know he would not leave outside. The mechanical steps moved away slowly, as if the machine had not found what it wanted. Ethan heard the hum fade, then stop, then start again. Moving farther, circling the area, he realized with a cold clarity that the machine was not alone. Electronics whispered through the trees. Small drones flitting like bugs, scanning the ground. The forest was full of eyes now, metal and light instead of bird or fox. Ethan crept to the door and peered through a gap. The machine that moved through the clearing was taller than a man, but limp and insect-like, joints clicking softly. Its body covered in black plates that reflected the weak sun like a sick mirror. A strip of red light moved along its front. Scanning in a slow arc, the machine's head tilted, listening. And then a small pod fell from its belly and rolled away on 3 tiny wheels. The pod sniffed the soil, sending out a blue pulse that lit up the grass like a spiderweb. Ethan felt his stomach twist. He could not fight that thing. He had no weapon to stop metal and program. He could only hide and hope. The pod rolled near the shed and paused, its sensors humming closer to the wood. Max growled low, his body stiff. The pod's blue pulse touched the door, its light passing through a crack and painting the inside with cold color. For a breathless second, Ethan thought the light would find them. Then the pod moved on, rolling away to another part of the clearing. They waited until the forest fell eerily silent again. Then Ethan led them out, slow and careful. The ground smelled of rain and metal. The forest looked as if someone had drawn a line through it with a ruler. Trees snapped, leaves scalded, a path of order that did not belong on Earth. Lyra and Gnome walked quietly, their faces pale in the dim light. They had seen more than they should, but they still walked like children learning to hide. Ethan knew they could not stay in the woods forever. The machines would keep looking. And humans in town would get curious if he disappeared too long. He thought of his father's old workshop, far beyond the river. A place with thick stone walls and tools that still worked. His father had been missing for years, but the workshop was a memory Ethan could carry. A place with doors that locked strong and windows that did not show light from outside. It might be a safer place. And maybe it held something that could help as they moved. Max sniffed the air and then veered toward a narrow animal path. Ethan followed, trusting the dog's nose more than his own fear. The path led them along a stream hidden under ferns. And for a moment, the world smelled normal, like wet earth and moss. Max's tail lifted. The dog seemed lighter, hopeful as they walked. Lyra asked in a small voice, "Why do your people hide things like this?" Ethan looked at her. Then at the machine's traces on the ground. "'Cause sometimes hiding keeps the people we love alive," he said, and the truth of it hung between them like a promise. Night fell before they reached the workshop, shadows swallowing the trees. The sky opened a little and showed stars that felt suddenly close and human. They arrived breathless and dirty, but safe for the time being. The workshop's door groaned when Ethan pushed it. But it held, and the inside smelled of oil and old paper. Tools on the wall waited like soldiers. The radio in the corner was dusty, but maybe it still worked. Ethan shut the door and bolted it with a bar he found under the bench. He turned to the girls and saw, for the first time, a small, tired smile on Nomi's face. Lyra's jaw relaxed a fraction. They were not safe forever. Ethan understood that clearly. The forest had felt the touch of other worlds tonight, and those worlds did not stop looking because doors had closed. But for now, in the thick stone and warm light of the workshop, there was a small, stubborn human truth that came alive. Max curled at Ethan's feet and breathed in slow, even breaths, and Ethan, with the blue stone in his pocket and children who were not from Earth under his roof, felt something begin inside him. A hard, bright thing he had only heard of in stories. The thing people call courage, * the old workshop smelled like dust and memories. The tools on the wall had not been touched in years, but they still looked sharp and ready. Rusty screwdrivers, thick wires, and small machines sat frozen in time, just like his father had left them. Ethan had not been here since the funeral. The place still held his father's voice in the silence. Lyra and Gnome sat near the corner by a broken heater. Max lay between them, his head resting on Gnome's lap. The small alien girl stroked his fur slowly, her silver eyes thoughtful. Lyra looked around the workshop, her fingers trailing across old radio parts and blinking lights. "This place is filled with quiet thoughts," she said. Ethan lit an old lantern and placed it on the workbench. "My father used to build radios," he said. "He believed sound could travel through more than just air. He thought it could reach places we can't see." Lyra turned toward him. He was right. She said simply, "Some sound does not end. It just waits to be heard." Ethan nodded slowly. He used to say the earth was not alone, that maybe someone out there was listening. Gnome looked up, her voice soft. "We were listening." Once Ethan studied the dusty radio, its knobs stiff with age. "Do you think this can reach your people?" he asked. "Someone good, someone who can help." Lyra shook her head. "Our people are gone," she said. "Only a few escaped. And they are scattered." Ethan felt a weight in his chest, heavier than fear. It was grief, not his, but theirs, the silent sorrow of a home burned and lost. "I'm sorry," he said. And he meant it with all his heart for a long moment. No one spoke. Then Max barked softly. Not a warning, just a reminder that time was still moving. Lyra stood and walked over to the center of the room. She placed her hands on the floor and closed her eyes. A soft light moved from her palms into the ground. Then she spoke. "There is something beneath." Ethan frowned. "Beneath?" "Yes," she said. "A box full of signals." He grabbed a crowbar and pried open a section of the floorboards where she had pointed. Underneath, wrapped in an old blanket, was a black metal case. He opened it carefully. Inside were strange tools, coils of copper wire, small discs with glowing edges, and a device that looked like no Earth radio he had ever seen. Ethan turned to the girls. "Did my father know about this?" Lyra touched the side of the device. "This is not human," she said, "but your father learned how to use it." He was close to something. Ethan stared at the machine, wondering how much his father had never told him. He remembered late nights, strange phone calls, 2 notebooks filled with codes. Maybe his father had made contact long ago, kept it secret to protect others, or maybe to protect himself. "I need to try it," Ethan said. He cleaned the dust from the machine, connected wires, and set the device on the bench. The power light blinked weakly. Then it gave a low hum, like something waking up after a long sleep. Lyra stepped closer. "Speak carefully," she said. "This is not like human radios. This listens back." Ethan nodded, then pressed the small black button. "This is Ethan Hayes. Earth, I have found 2 alien children. They are not a threat. They are in danger. Something is hunting them. If anyone hears this, please help us." He let go of the button. The hum grew deeper, then faded. The machine gave no answer. They waited in silence, watching, hoping, but the machine remained still. Lyra stepped back, her face calm. "If someone heard, they will come." That night, while the girls slept in old sleeping bags and Max guarded the door, Ethan sat by the radio, wondering what he had done. He didn't know if anyone good had heard his message or something else. He didn't know if the machine could be traced, or if the signal had awakened something worse outside. The wind moved through the trees like quiet whispers. The stars above the forest flickered softly. Like distant eyes watching in the early hours, Gnome had a dream. She saw a sky full of doors, each one open to a different world. In one of them, Earth burned like theirs had. In another, people stood with weapons, watching the stars with anger and fear. But in one door, she saw Ethan standing in the light, holding Max, arms wide, not afraid, but strong. Behind him stood people, humans, facing the dark with him. She woke and looked over at him, still sitting by the machine, eyes heavy but unblinking. She didn't speak, she just watched him, learning something new in her world. Most grown ones ran or obeyed, but this one stayed. Even when the shadows moved, he did not run. He tried. Morning came slow and gray. Ethan stood up, stretched, and looked outside. The forest was still for now. But the tracks they had left were still there, and machines didn't forget. He turned to the girls. "We can't stay here forever," he said. "If something comes, we'll need to move fast." Lyra nodded. "They're already coming closer," she said. "The ground tells us." Ethan looked back at the strange device his father had hidden, then at the sky beyond the trees. "Then we'd better be ready," he said. Max barked once. Sharp and clear, as if to say, "We already are." And somewhere, far beyond Earth, something stirred. Something that had heard the human voice. Something now listening back. Asterisk, the wind outside was no longer calm. It carried a strange hum, low and steady, like something was pushing through the air itself. Ethan stood at the window of the old workshop, watching the forest shake. The birds were gone. Even the insects had gone quiet. Only Max growled softly under his breath, his eyes locked on the trees. Lyra and Gnome stood still, their heads tilted like they were listening to something deep underground. "They are here," Lyra said, her voice barely above a whisper. "The machines are searching." "But not just for us now." Ethan's heart sank. "You mean, they heard my message?" "Yes," Nomi said. "But not all who listen are friends." Ethan turned toward the strange alien device. Still humming quietly on the workbench, he didn't regret sending the signal. But now he realized it was like lighting a fire in the dark. It could guide help, or it could draw in something worse. "We can't stay here," Ethan said. "They'll find us any minute." Lyra looked at him, calm but serious. "The gate is opening again. We felt it." "What gate?" Ethan asked. Confused. "The same one we came through," Nomi said. "But this time, they want to come through it fully. Not just machines, not just scouts." Ethan swallowed hard, "So they're planning an invasion." Lyra nodded slowly. "If they open the gate fully, your world will be marked like ours was." Ethan clenched his fists. His world, his town. The people he had grown up with, they had no idea what was coming. He couldn't let that happen. Suddenly, the lights flickered. The machine on the bench gave a sharp beep. Then a new voice spoke through it, crackling, broken, but clear enough. "We received your signal. Stand by for response." Ethan leaned in. "Who are you?" he asked quickly. The voice answered, "Human Defense Satellite Link detected. Accessing." Lyra stepped back, surprised. This is not one of them. Nomi's eyes lit up. "It's something old, but from your kind." The radio blinked again, and a map appeared on a small, dusty screen next to it, one Ethan hadn't even noticed before. It showed the Earth, a red dot glowing above the forest. Then a voice said, "Ancient defense beacon activated. Threat level. Planetary breach." Ethan blinked. "My father. He built this. Or found it." Lyra's voice was quiet. "He didn't build it." But he listened long enough to unlock it. Suddenly, the floor shook. Not from machines, but from above. A sharp beam of light shot down through the clouds. Not far from the workshop, it wasn't red. Like the enemy's tech, it was golden. Burning bright, the voice on the radio changed. "Warning, enemy craft detected near breach zone. Weapon systems offline, manual control required." Ethan looked at the girls. "That means it needs us." "We can help guide it," Gnome said. "But only someone from this world can control it." "Then I will." Ethan said, without hesitation. Tell me what to do. Max barked and stood, tail stiff, ready. Gnome placed her hand on the side of the machine. Light flowed from her palm. Feeding into the device, Lyra touched the screen, and new controls appeared like a virtual layout of Earth's orbit. Weapons and targeting systems. Ethan grabbed the main control lever. It was cold, heavy, and waiting for a command. The workshop shook again, this time louder, closer. Through the cracks in the window, they saw 3 machines enter the clearing, tall and spider-like, scanning with red beams. Max growled and ran to the door. Barking furiously, Ethan shouted, "Gnome, shield us." She raised both hands, her fingers glowing white. A soft shimmer appeared around the workshop walls. The red beams from outside hit it, but bounced off like light against water. The shield held, but it was fading fast. Ethan stared at the screen and moved the lever forward. "Give me a target," he said. Lyra pointed at the glowing red point on the map. "That's their entry gate, deep in the forest. If we destroy it before they come through, we stop the invasion." Ethan's hand tightened on the lever. He aimed the satellite cannon, breathing slowly. He had never done anything like this in his life. But he didn't feel fear. Now he felt focus. He felt ready. He hit the trigger. Above the clouds, something ancient moved. A golden beam cracked the sky open. It hit the forest floor with the sound of thunder breaking mountains. The red glow vanished instantly. Scorched out of existence, the machines outside paused. Confused, then one screamed a high, metal scream like a broken whistle. They turned and ran, vanishing back into the trees. The workshop fell silent again. The shield dropped gently. And the glowing screen dimmed. Ethan looked at the girls. His chest rising and falling. "Did we do it?" Lyra nodded. "For now, yes." Gnome smiled, tired, but safe. "You fought for us." Ethan looked down at Max, who wagged his tail proudly. "No," he said. "We fought for each other, outside." The forest began to breathe again. The birds returned. The leaves moved softly in the wind. The sky above was clear, no longer holding shadows. But Ethan knew it wasn't over. This was just the first fire. The first warning, and now, the stars knew there was a human below. One who wouldn't kneel, one who would fight back. Asterisk, the golden light in the sky was fading now. The ancient weapon had gone silent. And the strange machine inside the workshop was dark again. Max rested near the doorway, his eyes watching the trees just in case. Ethan stood at the workbench, breathing slowly, hands still trembling from what he had just done. Outside, the forest smelled like rain and burned metal. The ground near the destroyed gate still sizzled, smoke rising in soft curls. But for now, the invasion had stopped. The enemy's machines had disappeared into the shadows, and the gate had closed doors, so it seemed. Lyra sat near the wall, her arms wrapped around Gnome. The younger girl looked pale, her energy dim. Ethan walked over and knelt beside her. "Is she all right?" he asked softly. Lyra shook her head when the gate was destroyed. "It took part of her," she said. "She is still here, but fading." Gnome opened her eyes slowly. "I feel cold," she whispered. "Like part of me is far away." Ethan placed his hand on her shoulder. "You held the shield. You saved us." Gnome gave a weak smile. "I wanted to stay. I still want to." Lyra looked up at Ethan, her voice steady but full of sadness. "The only way to heal her is to return her to the gate. But it's broken now, not fully shut." Ethan frowned. "So it's not completely gone?" "No," Lyra said. "It's cracked like glass. And that crack is pulling energy hers, and soon." This world's Ethan stood slowly, staring out the window toward the forest. "Then we have to close it fully from the inside." Lyra nodded. "Yes, but only someone touched by both worlds can do it. Someone living between. Ethan looked down at Max. And suddenly, he understood the dog had been with the girls from the start. He had found them, stayed with them, shared their warmth and guided them through the forest. He had been touched by the gate. By alien hands and human hearts, Max was the bridge. Ethan dropped to his knees beside him. "Max," he said quietly. "It has to be you." Max tilted his head, then stood and placed his head against Ethan's chest. Ethan hugged him tightly, pressing his face into his fur. "You've always known the way, haven't you, boy?" Lyra stood as well. If he enters the broken gate, his connection can seal it, but he must want to go. It cannot be forced. Ethan took Max's face in his hands. "You'll come back, right?" he whispered. "You always come back." Max licked his cheek once, then turned toward the trees. His steps were slow but strong. Each paw pressed softly into the earth, as if the forest itself guided him. Lyra and Ethan followed, carrying Gnome between them. They reached the clearing again, where the original gate had opened. Now, only a shimmer remained, like cracked glass floating in the air behind it. Strange winds twisted in slow circles, pulling in leaves, dust, and light. Max walked toward it without fear. Gnome opened her eyes and whispered his name. "Come back soon," she said. Lyra stepped forward, her voice low and ancient. "The gate knows him. He is both scent and soul." Max paused once, turned back to look at Ethan, and in that moment, Ethan saw not just a dog, but a protector, a friend, a quiet hero who had saved more than just his master. Then Max walked into the gate. The light bent and flashed. A sound like wind and thunder rolled through the clearing. The crack shimmered on, then collapsed inward like a bubble bursting. The air grew still. The forest was silent. Gnome took a deep breath. Her eyes brightened. The color returning to her skin, she sat up, stronger. Lyra placed a hand on Ethan's shoulder. "He did it," she said. "The gate is sealed." Ethan's eyes burned. But he didn't cry. He just nodded, watching the spot where Max had vanished. They walked back to the workshop as the sky turned gold for the first time in days. The wind felt clean again. The trees swayed softly, as if thanking the earth for still standing. At the workshop, Ethan lit a small fire. The girls sat close, quiet but safe. He stared into the flames, wondering if Max was gone forever. Then, just before nightfall, a sound came from outside, soft and familiar. A low bark. Ethan jumped to his feet and ran to the door. Max stood there, muddy and tired, but alive. His eyes met Ethan's, and his tail wagged slowly. Ethan dropped to his knees and hugged him tight. Laughing and crying all at once. "You came back," he whispered. "You really came back?" Max gave a soft grunt. Like he had always known he would, Lyra smiled from the doorway. "The gate took what it needed and let him go," she said. "Because Earth still needs him." Gnome ran to Max and hugged him too. Giggling for the first time in days, the sound was light and full of life. Ethan stood with his arm around Max, staring up at the stars, now blinking above the treetops. He knew others might come one day, and more battles might follow, but they would be ready. Because Earth was not silent anymore. A signal had been sent, a message had been heard. And now the stars knew one thing clearly: humans protect their own, even if their own comes from beyond the stars.